everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Ronald Bolden Jr. Ronald Bolden Jr. is the founder and CEO of Shy Marketing, and he's proven that you can generate 4 times your quota without making a single cold call. What makes Ronald's story so compelling isn't just his success, it's how he turned conventional sales wisdom on its head. While corporate America insisted he needed to cold call, Ronald was quietly building AI-powered systems that eliminate cold communications entirely and generate consistent revenue through strategic partnerships. After 19 years of building revenue engines for SaaS, fintech, and service companies, he's discovered that when business struggles to grow, the problem isn't usually the team, it's broken systems. And that insight is exactly what we're diving into today. You can find Ronald by going to his website, shinemarketingllc.com, or on LinkedIn at Ronald Bolden Jr., or by email at ron@shinemarketingllc.com, or by booking a call with him by going to calendly.com/Ronald Bolden Jr. Hello, Ronald. It's fantastic having you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. I look forward to our conversation today.
I'm excited for it. And to start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Ronald Bolden Jr.?
Yeah, so my definition of success is when the person who you're serving is so ecstatic about what you've done for them that they can't help but contain sharing it with other people. I don't define success as to what I do and what I see. I find success as what you deliver to someone else. I got fortunate enough to be trained by Zig Ziglar when I was in college. I purposely took 3 summers from engineering internships to be trained by him. And he always talked about helping people get what they want will help you get what you want. And I've lived by that pretty much my entire life. So that's my definition of success.
And I love that because it's all about showing up the best way you can to lead with service and lead with impact, and that will pay it back. And Ronald, we've talked about your journey before, but I think it's so interesting how you really understood from a young age, like myself, the importance of picking up other skills that you might not be getting in regular paths of education. What made you decide, okay, I'm going to go the route of engineering, but I also need this training and these skills?
Yeah, great question. It starts with the fact that I did an internship. I did the traditional thing. First of all, I was in a business major for 3.5 years in college. And then right before I'm close to graduating, I decided to change my major. Now, my parents, who were both educators, almost lost their mind. But, I told them, I believe this is the direction to go. My roommate, shout out to Reggie Stevenson out there somewhere who's still doing engineering, he helped me kind of see the better path. But when I did my internship, I did it at home for a utility company. Most of the people I ran across, no offense, were high introverts, phenomenal technical minds, but they didn't communicate hardly at all. You may have to ask them 5 questions to get the conversation going. And I saw myself, because of my high school life, where I was an athlete, I was popular, but I was shy, very conservative. And then I got to college and I was heading in the same direction. I said, I had to do something different. So the same company that I interned with told me that the internship was no longer available. So I lost my internship. So I was looking for a job. Some guy walks up to me and says, hey, you look like a sharp guy. I'm sure it was his line. Hey, would you like to hear about an opportunity? Went to the opportunity. Turned out it was a door-to-door sales opportunity where you would go to a state you don't live in, procure housing from strangers, and then work 6 days a week doing door-to-door sales all day long, and then you go to a training on Sunday. First, I thought it was crazy, but then I said to myself, well, how much better would I be prepared to communicate if I did a job like this? So after my parents yelled at me and pretty much disowned me for a little while, I still took the job. I went and did this not only one summer, but for 3 summers. And all 3 summers, I finished in like the top 100. And the main trainer was Zig Ziglar, who, rest in peace, famous trainer, famous philosopher, famous person to teach people about how to communicate. And the first year, 5,000 were out there. Out of the 5,000, I was the only engineer in the old group. And when I met him after I earned my way to some of his private trainings, he was like, "Yeah, I heard you were in Wisconsin." I said, "Yeah, that's not one of our historically good territories. What did you do?" And I said, "I just told stories. My parents were in education. I told stories, and I talked about how what they're experiencing, I was basically, I guess we can say, speaking with empathy. And I learned a long time ago, help people get what they want, and you'll get what you want." And people who said, "I've never bought from a book person before, from a door person before, but you're different." And I said, "Why?" "Because you were listening to me." And I was like, wow. I had no choice because I was a shy personality. So you learn to listen. You don't really want to speak. And then you start speaking after you've been spoken to. So when I combined it all, I realized this is where I needed to be. And for the next 2 summers, I just kept doing it until I graduated. And I realized my entire life, I keep hearing these words. "I know you're an engineer, but you're different." I said, "How?" "You communicate different." And I give it all credit to those 3 summers of doing door-to-door sales and really learning how to deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly of conversations.
Well, and let's dive into that for a minute too, because door sales, I don't care who you are. We've had a guest on this podcast before who was a door-to-door salesperson. It's hard. You got to put in the work. You're not dealing with just the weather, right? And walking and all your mind, yourself all day, but you're knocking on the door and you don't know what's standing on the other side of the door. You don't know if they're going to answer, and if they are, what the conversation might lead. So for you, how did you build up the mental strength, not just the physical strength, to be doing that every day, 6 days a week? And what was it like knocking on a door and mentally not knowing, you don't know where that conversation is going to go?
Well, I'll give them credit. Mr. Ziglar and the team, they really prepared us for the unknown, right? I remember the approach. We had a book bag because we were selling educational books. And so the method was you put the book bag between you and the door and you step back 2 big steps. So you would be in a non-threatening position so people can be comfortable. Okay. The next thing, and of course, they called everybody, the way we trained, was Mr. and Mrs. Jones. So you would say, "Hello, Mr. Jones. My name is Ron, and I'm a college student working here in the local area." And you had this entire little script, but the whole idea was to make it be disarming so that there would not be this issue with you coming out of the blue as a stranger, talking to them, and then having this assumptive step of where you reach down to the bag, put eye contact, and walk towards the door to see if they will let you in. Now, believe it or not, 9 times out of 10, people would let me in the house. And so I said to myself, thinking about it now, that would never work today, right? Because people are just not letting strangers in the door. But back then, I was working in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. In the second summer, I was in Gainesville, Florida. In the third summer, I was in Galveston, Texas, and then Houston. All 3 summers, I was getting in the doors, talking to people. A lot of the people I was working with were women who I would meet because they would be home sometimes and they'd maybe shift work or whatever. And so, I wanted to be as comfortable for them as possible. And what I learned was that's it. You have to make people be comfortable to talk to you. And then everything else opens up from there. If you don't make people comfortable, you cannot possibly help them because they're constantly sitting there thinking about, "Well, I don't like this person. He's making me uncomfortable." How can you make a decision when you're constantly feeling uncomfortable?
Mm-hmm.
So that to me was what I learned as a key thing, making people comfortable. And sometimes it can be natural, and sometimes it can be sort of, people call it forced. But no, you just got to read the face, read the body language, read the signs. If somebody looks a little nervous, don't push. Mm-hmm. Don't push. That's why cold calling, I knew I was never going to love that because of that. It felt like you're pushing. But anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
No. And what I would say too is it's the same thing. So many sales coaches right now, I feel like especially right now, are like close in 30 minutes. Just push the, objections you have. Just keep pushing until you get the yes, and they'll pay on the phone, right? And that might run over a 30-minute conversation, but don't kind of let up the gas until they're willing to pay. And as I went through like my sales growth and getting more comfortable with it, right? As you and I have talked about before, I was like, this doesn't feel like me. And everybody's in a different situation as well. So understanding, like, I had someone who has signed with me who was like, hey, I'm the business owner, but we have a process to make decisions with the other people in the company, and I would really also like them to get involved. And I was like, okay. And he's like, well, we're having our next big company-wide meeting, and it was almost like 30 days out. I forget if it was a little shorter than that, a little longer than that. And I said, okay. And I asked him, I'm like, what's the actual date of it? It's like, oh, March 17th. I'm like, okay, perfect. If I don't hear from you by the 18th, can I follow up with you then? And he's like, of course, right? Like, I could tell the energy. It was like, this is the process. There was nothing I was going to do to get him to buy in that time. And because I lifted that foot off the gas and was like, okay, let me know, right? He then came, and in between that time, he was so excited and so like aligned. He was reaching out to people. He like put me on an email chain. Oh, I already talked to these people. They're interested. Fast forward, March 17th came. That evening, got an email, talked to everyone. We're in. We're going to actually start April 1st. Can you invoice me on April 1st? And it's like, okay, could I have potentially gotten him to buy on that call? Probably not. And if you keep pushing, not being able to read the room and just going off a script or being told what you're supposed to do, I probably would have lost the sale altogether.
Yeah, and think about this, right? This is the tough part, right? When you're working with quotas, you have timelines, right? And everyone has these, monthly quotas, quarterly quotas, yearly quotas. Bottom line, I love the companies with the yearly annual quota, and it doesn't matter what you do per quarter because it allows for the natural progression of a sale to happen versus this monthly pressure that I better hurry up because I'm running out of time, which becomes a natural thing that you will display over your conversation. I had a person I talked to yesterday. Sounded like what he needed, I could do. Everything he was saying, I could do. I mean, it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I have this saying, and when I said met you, I believe in the hat removal business. Whatever you are doing as an individual contributor or a founder as an individual, and you're wearing hats, you're wearing a sales hat, a marketing hat, you have to self-generate business. Why? And my company wants to take those hats off your head. So you don't have to do that by yourself anymore. It's amazing how many people I say, give me 90 days for this to work. And within 30 days, they don't see what they want. And they immediately want to go back to wearing the hats again. It is built in almost to self-generate this pressure. And I'm going to say it again. Why do you do that? We have this short window of life, and our time is not guaranteed. Why do you waste time wearing a hat you don't like to wear or want to wear? Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to keep wearing that hat, no matter what anyone says to you, including the pressure hat, enjoy that life. I'm not doing that anymore. Mm-hmm. Not.
And we've talked about the book, Who Not How, and that mentality of bringing on a person that knows how to do it instead of just trying to figure out, or the who, I should say, the person who knows how to do it instead of trying to figure out how to do it yourself. And sometimes that also looks like, what is the thing that's been on your to-do list every single day, but somehow every single day it's the thing that doesn't get done, and next thing you know, like 2 weeks has gone by and it's still sitting there. I recently even had that when I'm like wrapping up my second book. My first book process was very different than this process because that one, a publishing company came to me. I get the royalties for it, but they had the whole system built in, right? The editors, the design artists for the cover, all this stuff. I wrote this book and it's completely self-published. And the one thing that was really getting me was I wrote the whole book, I looked over it, and then I was like, okay, now I got to format it. And at the end of the day, it's 220 pages that now I'm like, okay, am I just seeing like everything on a screen and it's like overwhelming me? And is this the best way and this and that? And finally I was like, okay, this book could have been done a month ago because at the end of the day, I'm tired and I want to pay attention to it, but it just is looking too much. And so I don't do it. I'm like, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow, or I'll spend time this weekend doing it. And then I'm like, what? I want to do fun stuff.
I mean, it's your core thing. You did the heavy lifting. You created this content. Mm-hmm. Now let someone else who lives and breathes formatting, who lives and breathes editing, who lives and breathes that turning your content or your dream and your art into reality, let them do it. Mm-hmm. And when they do it, you get it faster. You take a lot of that extra on you because, see, here's the thing I believe now, Olivia, especially with two sons, one being a student athlete, the other one changing majors like I did. Whatever we do it ourselves and then we let it go later, that weight or residual effort is still on us. It's like eating a bunch of bad food. Mm-hmm. You've eaten bad food for so long that the weight you gain does not go away overnight. And so when you make a bad decision business-wise, that stays on you for a while. And that's why when I tell people, don't buy leads, buy systems, and they go, yeah, and they go buy some other lead system. I say, well, I told you, if you don't have a system, why are you buying a bunch of leads and then plugging it into your procrastination system? Procrastination system, not a system, procrastination system. You don't have the time, the energy, or the want to do it, and you're still going to take on more because you're going to save $10. Mm-hmm. Your time is too valuable.
And the other question is, was that $10 really worth, right? At the end of the day, you're always going to give up something, right? Yes. And I love the analogy you said as well, is like, when you do a bad habit, when you're going through that process, it doesn't just like shred it right away. Like, I love the eating junk food analogy. I'm like, that's so true. But it's also the importance of understanding the system in place. And okay, listen, you buy leads, great. And if you're just plugging it into something and you're doing all the outreach, all the follow-up, all the things, especially if you're solo entrepreneur, even if you have a small team, well, guess what? That is time you could be doing something else, whether it is business oriented and more in your zone of genius, or, hey, I want to take the day off, or, not work crazy hours. And I think people forget that so often. And I want to dive into more of what you're doing now as well with Shy Marketing. But I kind of want to start at the beginning because I feel like there's such an interesting story here on why you decided to name your company Shy Marketing and help shy individuals really succeed in sales. What was the moment for you that you realized that shyness wasn't a barrier, but actually a superpower to leverage?
Yeah, it's a great question. I appreciate that. It was actually, I was an engineer still, and I had just come back from I think it was 9 weeks of this intense training, okay? When I took tests, and when I always take tests, I have sort of this mental challenge that I have to go through to get myself ready. And, I learned a while from test taking that if you don't know an answer, skip it and just come back to it later, okay? Well, we had this end of the 9-week session test. And I had skipped 3 or 4 answers. And then when I went back, I'm running out of time. I went back and started answering the questions, but I answered them from the wrong start point. So I was giving the answer that I would have said to the wrong section because I was skipping, but I was answering. So I was throwing everything off. So I had about 15 questions that I answered probably completely wrong for the other one. And I knew it, and I realized that, and I couldn't do anything about it. So, at the end of the time, I think they ranked everybody as to where everybody finished in terms of scores. Now, before I was in the middle of the pack, sometimes I'd be up. And at the end, because of my score was low, I ended up at the last or the lowest. But, still 90-some%. So my boss, I'll never forget him, we're having this sort of post, I passed, I qualified, I'm now certified. And he says, well, hey, Ron, it's okay. I'm a slow learner, and I know what it's like to be a slow learner. Now, when your boss says that to you, there's a couple of ways to take that. You can kind of eat it, but I immediately corrected him and said, I'm sorry, I'm not a slow learner. I'm the first of a slow learner there is. I had a little test malfunction, and that's it. I apologize, feel bad for you that you're a slow learner. I'm not a slow learner. And he had a look in his face like, how dare you? I said, well, no, how dare you? You're not going to put me in the category of something that I'm not. I am a person who switched from business to engineering with no prep classes, first time seeing classes, and I managed to still graduate, I think about 4 years after doing that. And I am proud of it. I'm proud of my C average because I had never seen any of those classes before. Okay. Meanwhile, everybody else had taken those classes 3 or 4 times. And I graduated, had a career in engineering, did what I had to do. And I've learned that when I was in tech, I met a lot of people in my major with that internship who just couldn't say anything. They couldn't communicate. They were uncomfortable. And when I would gain trust early with people, because that was maybe, that's one of the gifts I think the Lord forgive me. They said, Ron, I'm just not comfortable having these public conversations. I'm not comfortable even communicating what I did as part of my section. And so when I heard that, I said, well, what if I'm in the room with you and I help you? And I said, you'll do that? I said, man, I did a door-to-door sales thing. I'm really comfortable now having conversations. Now, when I first started talking, I started sweating because I still am uncomfortable, which is why my logo has a little sweating person on it. Because any speech I do, I will start to perspire. And then I'll have a towel, and then I'll wipe myself off, and I get comfortable. And then people bond over the fact that I powered through it. And so shy marketing is for the introverts, the people who are not comfortable doing sales, and for the folks who don't want to have to fight through it because they don't have the time, the energy, or for some people, it makes them ill. And I basically will take that off of your head so that we will do the sales and the heavy lifting part for you. That's identifying opportunities, verifying they really are real, having that first conversation or cold conversation or data qualified lead, what leads to the conversation, and then put them on your calendar. That's our goal. And by doing that as a primary, it makes a lot of people's lives easier because they have now somebody working on their behalf who wants to take it off their plate. Not do it temporarily, take it off your plate completely, right? And so shy marketing is built to help eliminate the hats that you're wearing when it comes to generating revenue. And even for nonprofits, I want to say this, Olivia. A lot of nonprofits, if you think about the nonprofits in our lives, they have a bake sale, fish fry, some kind of meal, crab feed, the golf tournament, love all those things, okay? But it is the make or break of their budget for the entire year. That's how they can do operations. I said, what about this? What if you referred me nonprofit to a for-profit? I help that for-profit in some capacity, whether reduce costs, help them with more revenue. And then as part of the deal, they donate a portion of their benefits to that nonprofit on a monthly basis. Now, the nonprofit wins because they're getting monthly support, and the for-profit wins because they're getting monthly help. And I called it a win-win program. I tried this, I don't know, 15 years ago. There was so much, well, what about you? And what do you get? And what do you gain? I listened and I said, you know what? I'm just going to shut this down. It makes no sense for me to keep trying to do this if people, all they're worried about is what I get versus the big picture. You're benefiting, they're benefiting. But I feel now in our current society, it's time to revise that. So I say for the nonprofits, I have something for you. For the for-profits who want to give back, but also need to create a way to do something, I have something for you. That to me is what shy marketing is all about, right? It's technology combined with partnerships. We combine the two, we help you get to revenue faster. That's what we're about. And that's what we'll always be about, because partnerships is why I don't have to do the cold calling per se anymore. because enough people will refer me, and I have people working with me that generate opportunities that come inbound. And then when they have services that are not in our core, I bring in a partner to help me fulfill. I think I mentioned this to you. I like the Avengers analogy. I'm great at this. You're great at that. We're going to work together and we're going to save the company or, save the organization.
And I think it's so important too to identify where your superpower lays in the skill set. And instead of just trying to be like, oh yeah, I could help support that, bringing on other people and partnerships that it is in their zone of genius. Because that also at the end of the day gives you way more credibility. But it's also about how you go about that, right? And for example, like I get so many people who come to me, whether it's just to be a guest on my podcast, and then they're like, yeah, I want to sell this product or service. And I'm like, okay, well, that's going to come off real fast if that's what you're leading with. And that's gross. And like, we're not doing this. Or they'll be like, hey, can you refer me people? I know you have a massive network. And yeah, I have a massive network. But if I don't know you from a hole in the wall, why would I refer you?
There's a platform we know where that happens. And I'm sitting here saying, I've never talked to you, but you want me to refer you to somebody who I might personally know, who's going to look at me and say, Ron, why did you refer me to this person? Then I have to deal with that backlash. It's happened already a few times. And I say, now I say respectfully, I need to get to know you first. If you're not willing to at least have a conversation with me and know who I am and how I tick and how I think, then how in the world am I going to refer you to somebody else who I do know how they think? That doesn't match, No,
it doesn't. And I'll use a podcast related example, right? Because I have always been, because of the industries I've worked in prior to starting my business, prior to having this globally ranked podcast, working in professional sports, working for a Fortune 500 company, Lockheed Martin, I very much understand the power of your name and the power of what you build and that reputation. And so I've always been like kind of cautious with that and really mindful. But I remember I was starting my podcast. Yeah, I was like more starting out. And a good, like one of my best friends who grew up with her. She's an amazing individual. She is in the gymnastics space. She knows a lot of contacts in the gymnastics space. And I was looking for a certain, like a pro athlete kind of guest, my celebrity guest. And she's like, Olivia, I know this really big college coach right now. She's the first female, like blah, blah, blah. And we went in and she's like, I'll text her. I'll get you on. I'm like, okay, great, right? Awesome. Thank you so much. So she did an intro text, got on a call with this woman, which had to be rescheduled. But I'm like, okay, life happens, right? We book it. And the day of the recording, I'm sitting there. And this was the first time, too, I had someone like no show to a recording. And Ben, my producer, will say I've maybe had like 5 of these, the 200 recordings I've ever done. And that was my first one. And I'm sitting there and I'm emailing her. I'm like, hey, you joining? Like this and that. No answer, no answer. So she's like, and this recording was happening after Thanksgiving. So I'd spent part of my Thanksgiving break prepping for this because this for her schedule, had to be a quick turnaround. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I was already like, okay, well now you showed, and I spent my Thanksgiving break prepping for this. And then I'm like, okay. And she ended up like an hour after the fact calling me and was like, hey, I'm sorry, I got the times wrong. This came up, whatever it was. I'm like, okay. Then we rescheduled for like a week later. And same thing happens. I'm like, what is going on? And she ended up finally getting a hold of me like 2 hours later and was like, oh, well, the time, but also this like hurricane happened and this and that. And I'm driving home and I'm like, it just the math wasn't mathing in like the excuses she was giving versus like what she said was happening.
Yeah.
And my friend felt so bad. And I said to her, I was like, it's not on you, right? You didn't know she was going to do this. But at the end of the day, like, not for anything, Liz, and that's one of my best friend's names. She's amazing, so kind individual. I was like, like the next person you refer to me or say, hey, can you put my friend on your podcast? I'm like, it's going to damper the weight a little bit because there's a level I put out and expectations I fit. And now in the back of my mind, I'm going to be thinking, is this person going to do what the last person did? And so it's one of those things you have to understand that weight that comes with it as well.
No, and it's a great, and thanks for sharing that, because I think a lot of people, when they maybe even watch this, they may think, okay, you have a successful podcast, you've made it. But they don't understand some of the stories of the moments, like you just said, like Ben talks about 5 times in 200 podcasts, right? This is the third podcast I have ever done with Shy Marketing. I have been asked probably about 200 times. This is only the third one. Now, why, when you're a marketing branding solution provider, would you not do a bunch of podcasts or do a bunch of this or a bunch of that? Get yourself out there, as they say. Well, because Shy Marketing is for who? The introvert, the person behind the scenes, the one who needs someone to do it for them, right? So if I don't have someone at the time who I'm currently trying to promote or put shine on, I don't see a reason why I would do it. Now, I have several dynamic founders who I would love to bring to everyone's attention, right? And I won't do that now because that's not what we talked about doing. But what I do know is when people go to the website and they see certain services, behind every service is a partner. And I had to structure myself to be like that so that they can still benefit, almost like the wizard, right? They're behind the scenes delivering a service, but they've hired me to be sort of the face of the brand. And I think that's valuable because some people, lady that talked to today, brilliant HR mind. I mean, when people deal with people, you need to have solid HR services. And she's a brilliant mind. And when I heard her say, but my website is this and this is that, and she's talking about all the stuff that's sort of a mess, but she's this brilliant HR execution strategist. I told her, it's our last 5 minutes of the call. I said, I can help you with all of that. She's like, I said, I can help you with all of that. The website mess, I got you covered. The whole social, got you covered. Generating your, I got you covered. Somehow in 28 minutes, that didn't come through. And that's on me. But that last 5, she didn't heard. I got all that covered. Send me an email of what it is you need. Send to me an email, in that email, what your budget is, and we'll make it work. Now, people will say, what do you mean make it work? I said, she is picking what she can start with, the dollar amount. Why? Because she has a need, and she's a brilliant mind. And I want to have a world where brilliant minds are not being blocked from getting what they need based on their current budget. Because if I help her and she helps me, we're going to help a whole lot of people. And I can't get caught up in, well, I need her to pay a certain amount. Hey, great thing about running your own company, you can pick and choose who you want to work with.
It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing feeling.
And I say to people, look, if you want to know what joy is, it's when you can say no to somebody where they just knew it was a yes, but you knew it was a no because they were just special. And when I say special, it's not in a good way. They were special. And it's like, you know what? I would have a nightmare every time I take a call with you because you're going to treat me like I'm some type of servant and not a partner. You're going to treat me like I'm not providing you a service by choice and not by requirement. You're going to treat me like I'm an employee and not a service provider. And that's why I started my own company, so I can say no. I'll tell you a fast story. Lady and I got along great. She was the founder. Got along great. She's in a space that I really can appreciate education. My whole family's in education. So anything around education, I'm always going to perk my ears up and want to participate. Her partner, principal, I don't know what it was. He got on the call. Now, I joined the call 5 minutes late or 8 minutes late. I had some technical difficulties. For some reason, there was some service in my area with the network. I couldn't do anything about it. I got on late. The whole time I was on the call, the first 5 minutes, he was just looking at me like this. And so she was talking, I was talking, we're trying to kind of, we're moving on. But he just kept looking at me with this irritated look. And I said, well, can I ask him the question? Can I ask you, was there a challenge right now? Is there a problem? And he kind of went into this whole rant about me being late and how that's unprofessional, blah, blah. And then I explained why. And then he kind of didn't accept the reason. And so we got towards the last 5 minutes. And I said, I got to tell you all, I'm not a good fit for you. He clearly this is bothering him. I'm not a good fit. Mm-hmm. And you can see the look on her face of really disappointment because she and I already had worked out the whole master plan to help her business. And he was caught up in my 5 to 7 minutes late and he wouldn't let it go. Mm-hmm. And I believe we're not in this world of perfection. And if I'm going to make up the time and we're going to make it work and I'm not going to try to add more time to our call, I'm going to make it work with the timeline and I acknowledge my lateness, I am not going to keep begging you for forgiveness. Mm-hmm. There's only, I can get caught up. There's only one person who I worry about, I worry about when it comes to that. And we'll just leave it at that.
Well, I want to dive into, for a few minutes as well, the importance of systems. We've talked about it periodically throughout this conversation as well. When you talk about, marketing and sales, what do you think is a foundational system one should have in their business?
You have to have a way to respond to people's questions 24/7. Mm-hmm. Because the aha question they have may come at any time. And if you have a very clear way to answer those questions, I believe that is the number one thing you should have. Because I go back to listening. On my website, I have a system through a partner where people can click on it and ask questions and do a back and forth conversation like you're having right now. Now, there's other companies that do the same thing. I'm not saying they're the only one. But I like the robustness of their system. I like how I can ask it any question about any rabbit hole I want. It can answer those questions. It can ask me stuff personal. It can ask me stuff. It can handle it all. It's that sophisticated. And then if they're ready to talk to me, it can do a live call transfer during working hours I have. Then if my phone rings and I can't answer it, it goes right back to appointment booking services. So see now, no matter what, all your questions get answered with the system. Mm-hmm. Appointments can be booked in your calendar with a system. Live conversations can happen with a system. And qualification. I would say you need to have a system. If you have no system and all you're doing is relying on voicemail, really good luck. How many voicemails have you left over the last year?
I mean, I'm a talker, so I will leave a voicemail, but not even that. I wouldn't say it's a tremendous amount. It'll be like,
if you call a business and it hits a voicemail like back in 1980, hi, thank you for calling Ronald Bolden Jr. Marketing. I'm sorry I can't take your call right now. Please leave your name and number after the tone. How does that come off to you in today's economy, in today's world of tech? It doesn't come off too well, right?
No, and there's times I get that and I'll just be like, okay, well, I got to take care of this now, right? Like, what am I going to do?
There you go. If you like them, if you really want to work with them because maybe you had a great meeting with them, you at least want to have a system that can at least address or service them until you can talk to them, right? So that's why I say, you answer any questions or questions get answered. Can you tell me about your appointment booking philosophy again, for example? And say, yeah, and it goes down to, can you help me with, I'm this kind of company. Can you help me? Yes, here's how we'll do it. Can you do international? Yes, we can. All those questions can be addressed with the system and still at least give the person their answers so they can at least have the time to wait if you're not available. Or you can go the step further. Have a customer support team, which we have available, and they can answer all the calls 24/7, so no one ever misses out on a live call conversation. So there's ways to kind of make it work now in our world, but you got to have a system. That's all. You got to have a way to address questions. That's the number one thing I would say to people. Lots of Googling, lots of researching. You need to be able to answer their questions.
Mm-hmm. And that being said, too, you had brought up lead generation and the aspect of like, okay, it's one thing to buy a lead list, it's another to like actually get them to convert. So from that aspect as well, how do you look at leads and the right people and the right system to actually get someone to convert?
That's a great question too. So, but I shouldn't be surprised. You asked a lot of great questions. So, leads. Here's what I've said for 20 years. A lot of folks may disagree with me. I say, don't buy leads, buy systems. Here's why. Because depending on who you talk to in the data, when someone is a warm lead or hot lead, that temperature may be, if you're lucky, 5 minutes of hot, then warm, then cold. If I call you and you're not available, dead. If I've Googled something and I get 40,000 results and then I reach out to that person, they don't respond, dead. So when you buy leads from database companies, I won't say any names, and that model is one where everyone can buy from that database, then if they don't update that database every single day, you're basically going to be buying leads that are going to be older. And if you're a popular candidate for a industry, high net worth, high income household, blah, 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 fill in the blank, then everybody who has a high ticket product is going to be all bombarding you, trying to get you to talk to them. And then you get 5,000 spam calls and you get 40,000 emails and you get all this stuff. And then somehow you're going to weed through all that magic and you're going to be the one company that said, oh, you have the key title on your email and now I saw you. So I say it's good to get systems that at least have a thing called intent. And everyone has different strategies. I won't get into all the strategy. But the bottom line is you want at least something that lets you know people are looking for what it is you're asking for, engage in them in a appropriate way, in a compliance level way, and then getting those people into some level of conversation, garnering their interest, and then seeing if they want to have a conversation that's within the same 30 days of the time you're talking, then do an appointment booking conversation. All of that is the art of getting someone from buying leads to a system that gets people on their calendar, okay? Some people are super skilled at doing this in a live conversation. Have those people. Some people are really good with systems. Have those people. Or what I like to believe in is you create a situation of combinational things. Content that people say, I want to learn more and engage them. Partnerships that have people who are always looking for what it is you do, you engage them. And then systems that help you indicate people who are looking for what it is you ask for and you engage them. So by engaging all of those things, you create a world of inbound and outbound opportunities that allow you to get to the magical, I need 5 appointments, I need 10 appointments, and you're off and running from there. Now, a lot of things have changed in terms of engagement since January 1st. A lot of people I've even have as clients, a lot has in fact impacted all of them since January 1st. So now we're all working with the world of opt-in. And if you get people to opt in, you can do a lot of great things. And so I've been doing opt-in for a long time, but still the rules have changed. And so I tell people you want to work with somebody who at least has a variety of ways of getting people to be aware of you so that you can get them to help you with what you want, appointment booking services. And that's what we do. We don't do one size fits all because there's no size that fits all. You got to do a variety of things, and you need to have different specialists in different platforms because the audience you want to attract is different on different platforms. You can't all run to LinkedIn, great platform, been with it since day one. You can't all run to Facebook, or you can't run to TikTok. Different platforms have different responses. And you want to work with people who at least understand it, live and breathe it, which is why I say this again, Olivia. I will never do my own social media. I have a social media team. That is a full-time, intense job. You got to love it. Hey, team, you guys make it happen. A beautiful couple out of Utah I work with, husband and wife team, their support team, I don't have to worry about. They executed all for me. They executed for my clients. They're a phenomenal partner. Love them. Got a young lady I work with out of India. She does videos. She's a young lady who loves videos. She turned one of my selfies into a converting video. Gotta love her. Got another young lady out of the Philippines, great at operations, used to work for a bank, used to work for one of the larger banks, a bank we all know. She used to deal with fraud. Have her on the team as my operations person. Gotta love it, right? Different people, different parts of the world. Got a software company I'm working with where all the engineers the whole engineering team is a bunch of veterans. So helping them of getting funding right now. And once I do, it'll be a phenomenal thing because they've been looking for somebody to help them with that for a long time, and I'm helping with that project. Those are the kind of things I like to do. Bringing people on the team who other people, and this is what their words were, Ron, no one else was willing to work with me. You were. Because again, back to that core thing, service. You're serving me, I'm serving you. But the most important thing is I'm serving you, because I like to say this: if you had kids and you had kids walking by and they saw me or heard my voice and say, is that Uncle Ron? Hey, Uncle Ron. That's the relationship that I'm always trying to get to. You know, that the kids know I'm working with the parents to make things better.
And
it might be corny, but it is what it is.
I think it's very important. I think it's also one of those things that seasons in life can change. Are you prepared for when things change, right? It's not just about what's happening right now, but are you kind of looking at that path of what does the next 6 months look like, right? Even in podcasts, a lot of time I tell hosts, okay, when we're starting to do this, we're going to also do batch recordings. That is something my amazing producer, Ben, when I initially interviewed him before I even started my podcast, he talked to me about that and the importance and why he saw podcasts failing and all the time he did it and this, that, and the next. And we went down a deep conversations. And I always tell people now, be able to, for example, at least if you're in April, recording for April, you already know what's releasing in May. You're at least in April recording for episodes that will release in June. So that if life happens, you're not like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm flying by the seat of my pants. It's, oh no, we had a system in place, right? Going back to the system. We have the system in place. I don't got to worry. I can move that recording because I don't need it for this week or next week. We got time, right? And that goes on both ends of it. And I mean, there's so much more we could talk about. And Ron, we're definitely going to have more fun conversations. But I can't believe we're at the top of the hour. So Ronald, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
Appreciate that question. And thank you again for having me. Thank you, Ben, for producing. I appreciate that. I understand the importance of that role as well. So for more people who want to learn more about Shy Marketing, you can come to my website. It's shymarketingllc.com. On my website, it says a button on the right-hand corner says Talk with Us Now. Ask any question you want about Shy Marketing, our philosophy, what we do, how we can service you. And if you like what you hear, that system alone will allow you to talk to me live or book an appointment on the counter or talk to somebody on the team. So that's all you need to do. On LinkedIn, just like we said in the beginning, Ronald Bolden Jr., I believe I'm the only one on LinkedIn, ironically. So you look in Ronald Bolden Jr., you can connect with me. I accept pretty much all connection requests. And then we can always have a conversation. So that's the best ways to reach me is through my website in the system or on LinkedIn. I'm on another platform that we both met on called Alignable. Same thing. I'm under Shy Marketing there or Ronald Bolden Jr. And we can always connect. But I will say this to you. When you talk to somebody about doing or being a guest on a podcast, find out if they have a system.
Yep. Systems are important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you inviting me to get a chance to talk to you today.
I am so glad we had a chance to talk because even in my head now, I'm like thinking about different things. I'm like, oh, this could be interesting. Okay. That's the amazing things of having conversations like with individuals like yourself, where like, you don't just leave the conversation providing value. You leave the conversation going, oh, we got to talk more about this and dive into that. And it's so amazing. And thank you, Ronald, for all of your insight today.
No, thank you. Thank you.
And a few of our key takeaways, though there were so many fun takeaways and things to think about during this conversation, but a few of them were help people get where they want to be, and you will get where you want to go. And I think that's so important. And Ronald brought that up in the beginning, but it was also a theme of our conversation, I think, and one of those key pillars to understanding that when you serve others and lead with intention, business will come, opportunities will come, and understanding that is really important because, as Ronald said, even later on in the discussion, the way you show up, someone feels that. And it is them making internal decisions whether they want to work with you or don't, right? He brought up the money mindset around it as well as you have to make people comfortable. I think one of the most important things is understanding where that person is, not just in the call, but in life, and making them comfortable, like Ronald said, in door-to-door sales. He'd back up a few feet, lead with engagement, lead with impact. And it's also the fact that even in today's world where you might not be doing door-to-door sales, lead with understanding where that person is, and don't try to push it in being like, I have to close. As Ronald said, when you look at the full picture of a full year instead of just like that month's money, that allows you to be more comfortable yourself and allow others to be comfortable as well. And I think one of the most important things is don't buy leads, buy systems. Ronald said this multiple times, and I really even enjoyed his point at the end is like, what does buying that lead actually mean? Will you get that to convert if you can't respond quickly, if you don't have the systems in place? And when you have certain systems in place, you might not even have to buy leads because they're actually converting. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Ronald Bolden Jr. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.